All right. So
Jerry's on.
I was,
Jerry's-
and then I left.
Jerry, she was, now she's gone.
Yeah, it's okay. I was on my way here. I just wanted to make sure, in case you were starting on time, that I wasn't
fair enough.
late. So I think I'm just gonna Zoom till I get zoomed there. I got my video off and just was listening to you not say a lot.
All right. So, Jan, do you have section 32?
32.
So, chapter 9, section 32. Want to start us off reading that?
All right. Section 32, condemnation. Any necessity of taking property for the city by condemnation shall be determined by the council and declared by an action of the council, describing the property and stating the uses to which it shall be devoted.
Are we skipping ordinances?
Yeah, I kind of thought we
That's
just
where we're,
That's where we're.
finished. I thought we were on 28 or maybe
Right.
chapter
chapter
I think
8.
we finished.
chapter 8.
Yeah.
Page 28. All right. So we're supposed to do 29?
Yeah.
My bad.
I think so, yeah.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, it didn't seem bad.
Okay, section 29, under ordinances, enacting clause. The enacting clause of all ordinances hereafter enacted shall be, the city of Oak Ridge ordains as follows. You want me to keep going? That's kind of a weird ending.
It is a weird ending, nevertheless.
It gets weirder.
Are there any questions for clarification of what that section means?
For me.
Were they having a problem understanding stuff before?
Yeah. We're just identifying the city of Oak Ridge as who what we're with now.
It shall be. So when you're reading an enacted clause, it starts with the city of Oak Ridge ordains as follows, and that's all it's telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like these are words we're gonna use for things that we've enacted.
It's like,
Fancy way of saying it.
I don't think it needs the section 29.
This has to do with ordinance that have been enacted.
Yeah,
So that is a good question of why does this have its own section?
yeah.
I can't answer that, but I do know that that every city has to state how they will refer to an ordinance. They have to say this is how we will state it, and they have to use the same language every time. So maybe that's why it's in there. You know.
Ah,
Yeah, I
maybe
just
it's-
don't
that
think
makes
it
sense.
needs the section 29
Yeah,
or whatever.
maybe it's because the scenario is like High Prairie using Oak Ridge address, so it couldn't be High Prairie or ordains as follows. It would still have to say Oak Ridge because it's Oak Ridge ordinance. Instead of Westbrook because it's its own city.
Well, every established city has to say this is how they're going to refer to themselves. So I don't know why there has to be its own section, but there it is.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me that it is in some section. It's
Right.
fine.
Just curious. What
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna call the sky blue, we will call it blue.
Yeah. We'll say that the sky will not say that blue is the color of the sky.
Yes. It's fine.
Any questions about the implications? Section 30. Chris, you wanna take that?
Okay. So I've read it about 50 times and I'll see if I can get through it. Adoption by council, number 1. This is on that. Except as subsection 2 of this section allows enactment at a single meeting, and subsection 3 of this section allows reading by title only, an ordinance shall be fully and distinctly read in open council meeting on 2 different days before being enacted by the council. Let me stop there.
Yes. Pause there.
So does that mean that before it actually gets voted with motion and all that process, that it has to be read in full, not title only?
Unless.
Unless.
Section 2 and 3.
Is there a norm for why there are 3 different ways to do things? Is one more likely to happen all the time and the others are more important or less?
So you'll see the exceptions here in a minute, but basically if it's unanimous and there's kind of no debate about it, or if it's an emergency, it can be passed in one session. But otherwise, if there's one no vote or it's controversial, you want to give the public time to have input. So
that's when you would do the 2.
yeah. That way things can get caught, like Matt actually caught one the other night. Didn't have something posted on that, so delayed it another meeting to give people answers. Input.
I have no questions.
Would you be willing to?
Yeah, it's just finding it difficult. Yeah, I kind of wondering. Okay, I'm happy to. What you want? That's good with me.
Letters.
So there's any questions?
So far.
The subsection thing really confuses me because it's like, we can do this, except, so why? I don't know, it's hard to follow for me.
It is. It's too long to be one sentence, first of all.
I think until 2 and 3 are read, one's not gonna make any sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So there can't be any questions on 1 until we get 2 and 3 to find out what those exceptions.
Yeah.
Let's read through them and then go back and check in on questions.
I think that's a good idea. You want to keep reading?
Okay. Number 2. Except as subsection 3 of this section allows reading by title only, the council may enact an ordinance of a single meeting by unanimous vote of all councilors present, providing the ordinance is read first in full and then by title.
Okay, let's keep going.
Keep going. A reading of an ordinance may be by title only if A, no councilor present at the reading requests that the ordinance be read in full, or B, at least 1 week before the reading. A copy of the ordinance is provided for each council member. 3 copies of the ordinance are available for public inspection in the office of the custodian of city records, and notice of their availability is given by written notice posted at the city hall and 2 other public places in the city. Keep going.
Yeah. Go ahead and read the whole
Okay.
thing and then we can
All right.
refer to all.
An ordinance read by title only has no legal effect if it differs substantially from the terms as it was filed before the reading, unless each section so differing is read fully and distinctly in an open council meeting before the council adopts the ordinance. Number 5, after enactment of an ordinance and signed by the mayor, the custodian of city records shall endorse it with its date of enactment and the endorser's name and title of office.
So I think true to your question about, this seems all really confusing because it keeps doing except that, if that, those are the things for each one of them.
Just be point blank and condensed.
That is, that's a really good point. I don't know that it can be, but let's see if we can get it there. So, so number 2 is, except as subsection 2 allows an enactment in a single meeting. Number 2 describes when you can do it in a single meeting. So the standard is, and James, make sure I'm saying this, the standard is you read it twice on 2 different occasions. And one exception is number 2. And that is, you can read it by title only, in a single meeting if it's unanimous, and it provided that you read it at least that first time in full. Is that right?
Yeah, the first reading has to be in full. Yeah, second one can be by title only.
Right.
If
Unless
everyone
requested.
agrees that it can. be
If everyone
by
agrees.
And on the first reading has to pass by.
And that means everyone. If one counselor says, no, I want it read in full, or I don't agree with that, then there is no discussion. There's no counter conversation that stops it.
There's no public input. Do that.
No, because that's just the reading and the presentation of the ordinance. It's not an opportunity at that point for public comment.
Why can't it just be said how you said?
Because it was as confusing probably as that.
No, it was so much more clearer, the way that you said it.
Let's reread the whole.
Fine.
All the way to. In 3B2, is it necessary to have 3 copies of the ordinance available for inspection? That's just, to me, it's a waste of paper.
All right.
Copies.
Especially if it's only in the office of the custodian of city records. As opposed
They're
to
allowed to take it, right?
Right. 3 people.
Well, so what we do with everything is we have a copy, reports something to budget, etc. We have a copy sitting out front. It says do not remove. Copies are available for, we charge now 25 cents a page or something. You want to take home a copy, they're also posted online. But if you want a hard copy to take home, charge for the copies. But having 3 copies of the same document sitting out front.
You've never had that many people come in all at once trying to
Read
read something, have you?
No.
That would be, I mean, how easy would it be then if, say, 3 people came in all at once, you had 1 copy out there, they didn't want to wait around for a chance to read it.
We could easily make
Make a
Then
copy.
you could make your copy and then leave it there.
I just hate
Just like,
having, someone.
have you guys been doing the 3 copies?
No.
Okay. And
Because
nobody's
I
been
didn't
complaining, right?
No. I knew that a copy had to be available.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know 3 copies had.
So
But now with the digital world that we live in, because they're available online, I would wonder whether or not that should suffice omitting 2 of the copies and just having 1 hard copy available in office.
Yeah.
But the questions, not changes.
Yeah, so the question is, do we need 3?
Right.
The other question would be, do we have to say the office of custodian of city records? Can't we just say city hall?
Right.
Unless you've moved it. And it's
I guess if we were a huge
Oh,
city and there were multiple offices.
yes,
Right.
which then would make sense.
Only city by name.
Do we ever plan on moving the custodian? The records of the city from City Hall? Are they stored anywhere else that they would have to go to find something?
There actually are some really, really old records in the WAC. So super old things that most of which we technically don't have to save.
It's really cool.
I'm sure that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Just give them to the museum and let them.
Go to the museum. You gotta go into the archives. So, you know, there is a way, I was just looking at the League of Oregon Cities, and I think, not that I want to insert that here at all, but they do use updated language, and they use a little more concise language to explain an ordinance and this process. So that may be something that we have put in the notes that just say, consider looking at the updated language in the League of Oregon Cities charter.
Sounds great.
And adopting that. And I was looking at it, James, and it doesn't say anything about 3 copies. It just says available in writing to the public at least 1 week before the meeting. Doesn't give a number of copies or anything like that.
Where do you guys, I mean, you've got City Hall. What are the 2 other public places that you know of? The post office?
That's the only one we use now. We used to use, is it the library or something?
Right next to it.
Right. It's just,
Yeah.
And they're not open very often.
Right.
So we just stop.
Postal firm.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because they have a little mail thing in the back, right? They still do the mail.
Maybe that they stopped letting us do that.
Yeah.
The post office kind of gets, we have a lot of, they're like, it's too full. And I was, well, why don't you take down some of the old stuff? Yeah. And we could do it at raise, but people would just take it down.
Yeah.
Block. So that is another question. Do we have to have 2 other places? Or
I think
the cities?
So I know outside the elementary school, they have the glass that's locked and they have community things in one portion of it. They may have something similar in the high school, but the elementary school out on their entryway, they're off to the left, is a glass thing for notices to be
We would
posted.
need a space about as big as that poster behind you, the Oak Ridge Zone one.
So you'd have to build your own. Or turn it.
See, I offered to buy 2 at the post office. I said that I would donate 1 to the post office and I would have 1 specific to them. And the services available in the credit union tonight, and said, no, thank you. And I said, fine. Now they got a bunch of holes in the wall.
so. Are we cool with? I mean, no, the language is archaic, a little bit archaic. It could be updated.
I think so.
And you know, Matthew in his dizzy state has entered that in there for me. But that's good. So if we move, so how do you want to do this? Do you want to go through each one of these and look at them, or do you want to just say it's enough to know that there is a more complete way of saying this? How do you want to do this?
The ladder.
Yeah, the latter.
Okay. Do you want me to read what the ladder is so that you hear it? Or would you rather just look it up on your own? And, okay,
That way we revisit.
Okay.
When we go through the second time.
okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good. So. Hold on, blah, 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 blah. So, so that would then go through 4 and 5. And then we're at section 31, which would be the effective date, which is also included in that language. So the effective date for a non-emergency ordinance is 30 days after 30th day after enactment. So after the final vote, and then it is 30 days after that.
Yeah, because the way it's written out, technically it takes effect on the 30th day after enactment. So if you enacted something on the 29th, the 30th day could be interpreted as, oh, that's the next day. the 30th day.
No, that's not what that means.
It can be read that way. I'm just
There should be
saying
a
30 days after.
30th
You're
day
right.
of that
You're right, it could be read that way, you're right.
grammar.
Yeah.
Fix everything.
30th day, well, the 30th day after means after the enactment. Not the 30th day of the month after.
It's.
Why not?
Wow, okay. Do you want that recorded?
No.
Does that include, non-business days in that 30 days after its enactment?
Typically, you count business days, but you know, I think everyone has done this different.
Yeah, we've done calendar days,
So it's
but you're
30.
right, because that's a question that's come up before.
Maybe,
Business days
yeah,
or calendar days.
At that question. business day or
Okay,
calendar
business
day.
days or calendar days. Okay. So, chapter 9 then, public improvements, section 32.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Do that thing.
Yes, we've already read that, so. Are there any questions about condemnation and what this means, the meaning of it? Is that what I'm supposed to say the first thing?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Is
Don't
it
look.
personal property or probably like business properties only, or is it both?
Real property.
Real. So like down there on like river where that
Mhm.
community is,
Yeah.
that's just downright nasty.
Yeah.
And it's condemned.
Mhm.
The city could say, we're gonna take that over and make homeless housing out of it. And they can put tents out in that field as long as it's
Yeah, but
people down
But
there.
through the condemnation process, you have to pay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you have to clean it up. And
So what
once you
was-
do it that first time, where you have enough to buy that first house, clean it up, you can pay for that and then sell it.
Mhm.
And then you can do it again, but you have to have that.
Seed money.
You have to have the seat money to do.
So you really want to get somebody that's a investor of sorts that's willing to come in and do it, so the city doesn't have necessarily buy the property by themselves.
So you have to look for like an angel investor that would give the city the money, because a
Mhm.
private person, they would just be doing that on their own.
Yeah.
And what about the city, realtor? I mean, that could include house flipping for property flipping for condemned space.
No.
No.
It has to be for public, it has to be for public use afterwards. So this is not condemnation for, I want the house because it's horrible and I want to be able to resell it. This is condemnation so that you want that piece of property so that you can do something for the public good. It has to
Build a
be,
park.
Which,
it can be a park. It can't be a house that you're going to flip. It can, but it can be a building. It could be a public works. It could be a road that needs to go through there. It could be all sorts of things like that.
if the city's gonna continue to use it, but you can say the public good for condemnation is to get rid of the hazard to the public.
But you have to state the purpose of
Yes.
what you're going to use it for, and that has to be for the public good. And an individual building that you're going to either rent as a city to an individual or give to someone so that they can sell it is not for the public good. It has to be the public.
What
It's a public
parameters do
building.
they give for the public good though? Because we've got a house in our neighborhood that's.
Well, see, that's not what this is.
wreck, and
This
it's
is
just
not that.
Property
Because the
values
flipping
down.
Concept is still there. If the city acquires this property, they flip it for the community.
Well,
So
And
it
then we don't
still
have to give
is a
this-
community.
No, no.
That's
still
public
is
service, right?
And I mean, I think everybody's getting hung up on the word flipping.
Yeah, it's not that.
Yeah.
This is not condemning a
It
piece
is.
of property so that you can flip a house.
No, it isn't any different though than taking a piece of property, cleaning it and doing something different with it. That's a flip. That's all I'm saying. That's a flip. It's just the terminology I think that's getting hung up here because I understand the concept of changing it and presenting it back to the community for the community's good and use. But it has to get changed in the process. So you know,
Well,
remove the
There
garbage. and-
there is a way to do it. So you make it city property,
Right.
then you can surplus it. Then you can sell it to a private person like we did
Right.
down here at the lot that
Down on Douglas.
2 blocks away.
Douglas.
The burn.
So there's just an extra step. to surplus it after.
Still possible.
It's still possible, just an extra step. We're getting in the weeds.
Yeah.
Because the condemnation process is gonna be 40 pages long.
Yeah.
Right, so this just kind of allows it in general.
So this condemnation process, it doesn't actually, the League of Oregon Cities doesn't actually include this because they believe it being addressed in improvements, and condemnation has some rules that apply statewide, and as far as state right rules, so they don't really get into it too much. Like James said, you can really get into the weeds with it. But this leads to what's that word? When you
Eminent domain.
Thank you, eminent domain is what this is kind of referring to. Is for the good of the public, we want your property. It doesn't matter whether you want to sell me your property. The city says, I want your property. You can either accept my offer, or we're going to take it anyway, and then you're going to get the lowest offer you can possibly get. That's what this is kind of referring to and moving on into it. But,
And this ordinance just is stipulating that city council is that body that determines. It's not like the police department can go and condemn, it's the city council that decides.
Does it have to be neglected property or, trashy?
no, it doesn't have to be. It can be
The city
anything.
just wants your property, I'm gonna build a road here or something.
But that means you can defend that. And you have to, I'm sure James knows the depth of it, but there's a whole lot of hoops you have to jump through to prove that that piece of property is for the city's good and necessary. Yeah. And there isn't any other way to do it, type of thing. But, I guess for me, not having it in here, I think it's important that it's in here because this takes it out of the realm of a city administrator, a police department, a fire department. Saying we just want to do this, and it actually has to go through an elected official process that says yes or no. We have to do it, so it's on their shoulders, which I think is kind of good.
Yeah,
I think so too.
I guess one question to ask on section 32 is, should we add eminent domain to it? Should it be condemnation and eminent domain, and necessary taking property by the city for condemnation or eminent domain? That'll be determined by the council.
That's a good question, I think.
Yeah, if we're gonna put condemnation, then why don't we also mention it?
Right.
Is the difference between what is the difference between condemnation?
Eminent domain means like if we're let's say we have an airport. Let's say we're a bigger city, we have an airport and we've grown so much and we have international flights now, so we have bigger airplanes. We need to expand the airfield. We could do that through eminent domain and take away someone's really, really nice house. We could pay fair market value, but,
Right.
But that would be eminent domain taking rather than condemnation.
And condemnation implies some form of dilapidation, miscare, unsafe.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Is, I don't know the proper name, but TV Butte, is that outside of city limits? I was just thinking of that winery guy that owns that. Like maybe the city could do eminent domain. Take it away from.
Yeah, push this out.
Then who gets to sell it? So that was outlined. That was supposed to be.
No, he owns it. He owns. Ed King owns it, but he wants to put in them.
But he bought it from. He bought it from.
He bought it from the city.
Exactly.
Oh,
really?
Yes, a long time. It was bought from the city, and that's why we have an easement to the water tower.
Yeah, I would have done that contract a little bit and
What?
Anyway, I'm sorry.
sidetrack.
We're reading again.
Better off putting a winery up there than.
That would be better.
I don't know. I would think that section 32, there should at least be a listed, should it have at least a resource directing the public to where they can research on that a little bit further?
No,
Because
because
if somebody
websites change time and charters usually don't.
Hmm.
That's my thought.
Bless you. Well, I think the charter isn't a resource document. I mean, the charter states what the city, how the city is complying with state law, federal law, and what it wants to do for its citizens. But I don't think you want to put a whole lot of stuff into it that says, if you want more information about this, I mean, one would assume that if you're reading it and you want more information, you'll go find more information. Yeah. At least in my opinion. I hate to make things more complicated than they need to be. But that's a good question as far as how do people know what to do with what they have. As they should ask us for. So public improvements, section 32 just talks about condemnation, section 33 talks about improvements. And so did you read?
Nobody's read 33.
Would you read that?
Sure. Improvements. The procedure for making, altering, vacating, or abandoning a public improvement shall be governed by general ordinance, or to the extent not so governed, by the applicable general laws of the state. A remonstrance, the word I don't know. A remonstrance by the owners of 2/3 of the property to be specially assessed for a proposed public improvement shall suspend action regarding the improvement for 6 months. For this section, owner shall mean the record holder of legal title to the land, except that if there is a purchaser of the land according to a recorded land sale contract or according to a verified writing by the record holder of legal title to the land filed with the city recorder, and purchaser shall be deemed the owner wholly.
Oh, Lord.
Remonstrance, a forceful, reproachful protest.
Right.
Despite angry remonstrance of the residents, the board had already confirmed the plans. A document drawn up in 1610 by the something or other Dutch Reformed Church for some differences.
Who's the fancy pants that put that in there?
Yeah.
And does it have to be forceful? So only violent demonstrations?
It has to be a forceful.
The public
These are not
review.
violent,
So show
and they've got
force.
blood force.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have to say that the League of Oregon Cities language includes the same word.
Oh,
Really?
What? It does. It includes the exact, the
does it have
same.
a little dot by it so you can go look up the definition?
No, it says pretty much the same. The council may by ordinance provide for procedures governing for the making, altering, vacating, abandoning of a public improvement. A proposed public improvement may be suspended for 6 months upon a remonstrance by owners of a real property to be specially assessed for the improvement. The number of owners necessary to suspend the action will be determined by ordinance.
What?
So this is probably the only area that I have found that the league just does the same kind of gobbledygook as ours.
It must be a really, $20 word.
Yeah. I guess. So, I understand what it's saying. So if
I don't.
I don't either.
So, for example, where I live on Douglas, the city intended to create a road out of Douglas, out on East First and Douglas, and to go up to 2nd Street. So there is the one going up to 2nd Street from the alley behind me is just field. My road has no improvements on it at all. It has sort of nothing at all. And at one time, a long time ago, they said to the property owner that I now own, wouldn't you like to have that 5 feet that we're holding for the sidewalk? And so they gave that 5 feet to the title of my property. Just added it to mine. So that's what some of this is about. Now, if they had said, I'm going to take 5 feet, then the owner could have said, absolutely not. And that would have suspended any action for 6 months, giving both parties the time to
Legally prepared.
legally
Argue there.
go over the thing.
Okay.
I mean, that's a simple one,
Right.
but makes me wonder though, James, if this isn't more pointedly toward eminent domain than the condemnation.
Yeah, it could be.
So altering, vacating, or abandoning a public improvement shall be, well, no, I guess not.
Making public improvement.
And what general ordinance?
It would be weird if they dumbed down eminent domain to improvements,
Yeah.
and yet kicked it
Left.
up a notch with remonstrance.
Governed by general ordinance.
Yeah,
Well, my question would be, is this the same as the League of Oregon Cities? If it is, leave it. Maybe we should leave it. Sorry, good question.
It's different. The League of Oregon Cities is different, as I can see it, but it uses the same kind of text of language. It's not as long as this one is. And it is a little bit clearer, but it also adds a section. No, it doesn't. There is a special assessments section, sorry. We have that too, don't we?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it has one also.
By general ordinance. What general ordinance?
So if you decided, if we decided to, okay, governed by general ordinance, okay, making, altering, vacating, or abandoning a public improvement. So a public improvement. So what if we decided that we were going to abandon Salmon Creek Park? That we, I mean, wouldn't that, it doesn't, is that a public improvement? Would our park be a public improvement, or would like the public works building be a public improvement? I don't either. So let's go by building. If we decided we didn't want to keep that building anymore, right now our process would be to take it off of the city rolls, right? Surplus it. And then whatever reason we were abandoning it, whether we were selling it. So that probably would be the only reason why you would abandon that. Or if you had a right of way already on something, and then you said, I don't want that right of way anymore, and abandon it. And so what this is saying to me is that there needs to be a general ordinance. So there must have been, we go back to my previous property, there must have been an ordinance at some time given to the council for approval to abandon that 5 feet of 90 feet property. It would have had to been done by ordinance, right?
So if we're interpreting this correctly,
that's what would have happened. Yeah. I mean,
that's not how I'm interpreting it.
Okay, what do you see?
I'm interpreting it that there has to be an ordinance governing the process by which that occurs.
Okay, so the procedure for making.
Why didn't you just say so? It did.
So then would you would you do an ordinance that governs the procedure for each time you want to do it, or for just one in general?
Just for one overall.
So what the charter then is saying is, if indeed there is an occasion where the city wants to do this, they will need to have an ordinance in place
Yeah.
that governs the process.
Yes,
That was it.
yeah, that's how I would read it.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Why didn't you say that to start with?
Exactly.
That is
So
really
the
interesting.
question is, can we change it to that? What Kathy said.
Well,
How
that's
you put it
really
was-
interesting.
Was way more clear, specific. Point and condensed.
That makes, well, yeah, but that's not, that wouldn't be a charter statement. That would, the charter, well, I don't know. I don't know how we do it.
That's for the next time around.
Okay, the next
Right now,
time around.
Just the questions.
Okay. All right. Any other? Oh,
Yeah, remember it now.
Oh.
It depends on,
So if the city wants to,
oh, my question would concerns Chicago style trusts. So the way that this is worded specifies that 2/3 of the ownership of a piece of property have to object publicly and strongly to the city's seizure, which is what would then delay the seizure by at least 6 months. But if a property is held by a Chicago style trust, you can't verify what percentage is objecting, short of 100%. That's not penetrable to the city to examine the ownership of that, the shares of ownership in the trust.
but when you have that, isn't there then one entity that is declared the owner though? Whenever that happens?
The trust is declared the owner. So that you don't have a percentage at that point.
Right.
So
the trust would have to be unanimous or whatever in the behind the scenes they determined
correct.
becomes the answer the trust gives.
Yes.
Right.
And the way that this is written, doesn't account for a trust action like that.
Right.
If a trust has it that 1/3 of the trust membership can make an objection to seizure, which the trust could easily do, that could bring the city's dealing with a trust in conflict with the governing documents of the trust. So I would be curious if there is a benefit to excluding an acknowledgement of unanimous trust of trust action in
So just not.
So
But then what you're saying is that you won't deal with a trust.
no, it's just a simple clause that if the property is owned by a trust, any action of the trust will be assumed to be unanimous.
Okay.
Like that kind of a clause would get the city out of the potential conflict with the Chicago style trust in the eminent domain action of the city.
Okay, so
Well, it gives the city more power or more leg to stand on against.
It eliminates the potential that the city's action gets tied up in a probate court. Because you don't want a conflict in how the city, I wouldn't think you want a conflict in how the city is specified to deal with it, which requires the city to only delay if 2/3 of the owners object. So let's say that there's a trust and the trust documents say, hey, if one of the members of the trust objects to an eminent domain seizure, then the trust will speak up and say, no, you can't. to the city. Okay, a trust document could easily say that. The city's document, the way it's written, says you should only delay that seizure if 2/3 of the owners object. Okay, now there's a conflict in the governing documents the city is operating under and that the trust is operating under. And that's not good. You want the city to be able to take action, treating the trust as unanimous, so that there's no potential for other people who belong to the trust to say, this should have already been seized. Now there's a second case that's opened up about the fact that it hasn't been seized yet. And now the city is a party to that case for perhaps a civil proceeding for whether it's a tortious interference with a contract, because they want those majority members of the trust want the money from the sale of the property. And the city's own governing documents are forcing them to interfere with the sale. So it's.
So I put in a note there that it's important that maybe we add language to eliminate that potential.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
And surprisingly enough, as you're talking about that is something that can happen, because we have a lot of pieces of property around here and there that are owned by succeeding generations, which means a lot of them are tied up in trust, and it can't happen. So yeah. Thank you.
That's it.
There you go.
Trust with Audrey.
I couldn't hear that, Nikki.
Oh, Jeffrey's grandpa Gene has Audrey had a trust. His passed away wife, Jan's mom. So all their kids have different things, and it's all tied up in trust. Gene can't sell certain things because they're in the trust for the family. And certain things can't be done to it because it's in trust. So there's a lot of dynamics to a trust,
right,
whether it's on small scale of personal or larger scale of business.
Right, thank you.
So are we good with special assessments then, or with
Improvement.
yes, improvements?
That's all the questions we can ask tonight.
I think so. We're doing on time. Go ahead.
You're right, so
Sorry, I was still looking at.
Yeah, that's
33.
fine.
Okay. 34, special assessments. The procedure for levying, collecting, and enforcing the payment of special assessments for public improvements or other services to be charged against real property shall be governed by general ordinance. I don't have questions about that either.
So I'm gonna here. I can't type in typing. Did you know that?
No, it's that box right up there. Oh, it's white. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
The text is white.
Oh, there it is. Change it. I kept trying to type it. Nothing's showing up. It's like okay,
I did too earlier, and not, it wasn't until you started typing that I'm like, oh, it's white. That's what's going on.
I think I still have a question about 33.
Okay, let's go back to 33.
Okay, let's say, for example, the city wanted to put sidewalks in.
Yes.
Okay, so that is a sidewalk that is going to span the length of the street that is potentially 10 owners, right?
Right.
And that is that it takes 2/3 of those 10 owners to pitch it to object if they're like, oh, we don't want sidewalks, let's have all the kids get hit by cars.
Right.
Just saying.
I've gone this long.
Does it take 2/3?
No,
Is that are we
no,
talking, is it the same thing or is
it's
it
each
different?
title.
Each title.
So it'd be 2/3 of the ownership of each title.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. All right, thanks. That's it.
If
Okay.
it's one person that owns one dwelling that might object, how does that one dwelling with that one person as an owner, come up with 2/3.
Only.
Well, there are
2/3 is for
tickets.
equal.
Yeah.
It's at least, yeah, so one owner. can
Oh,
still do
at
that.
least.
Mhm.
Okay. Did I miss that?
Yeah, if it's only one owner, then it's
This is
the whole thing.
remonstrance by the owners of two.
So
So it's assuming that there's more than,
you're right, there's
so,
there a reason why this doesn't say at least?
yes, could we?
That's the
please?
question.
Thank
we
you.
have it.
Mhm.
Thank you for going back to that, Sue.
Good job, guys.
Even though it was in the back of my head and I just sidetracked from putting it out there.
Okay, now I'm done with 33.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, 34?
Yeah.
Special assessments, the procedure for levying, collecting, and enforcing the payment of special assessments for public improvements or other services to be charged against real property shall be governed by general ordinance. I think that sounds, I don't have questions about 34.
Anybody have questions about 34?
Oh, good.
Good. Okay.
Does it assume that the general ordinance is already in place?
Or that they're going to create one.
Well.
Isn't one to be compliant with charter, one would have to be created per general ordinance governing.
It seems to me that this section refers, I mean, this special assessment is referring specifically to the above section 33. So,
Improvements.
so you're saying, I'm gonna put a sidewalk in front of your house on this block, all of you have to say yes or no. They all say yes, now we're gonna pay for it by putting on a special assessment, right? All of your properties,
Now y'all have to give us
and
10
this is
bucks.
how we do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, y'all have to give us $10 because it's
Cause it's gonna benefit your business because people can walk by it. and
Right,
not
that's right.
Have to drive by.
and the kids won't get hit by cars.
There you go.
Right.
How does the League of Oregon Cities do this one?
This one says, special assessments, the procedure for levying, collecting, and enforcing special assessments for public improvements or other services charged against real property will be governed by ordinance.
So the word shall, we will.
Is there a difference between ordinance and general ordinance?
No.
No.
But that's a good question. Why does it say general ordinance? I've never seen a difference between general ordinance or ordinance. Well, no, wait a minute. Can you have a special ordinance? You can't. No. I've never seen an ordinance delineated. Boy, the way that came out weird. Delineated by special or emergency or general. I've always just seen ordinance.
I have seen emergency,
Okay. So I've seen,
like ones that have to take effect immediately after signature.
but that's an ordinance. And the process is done by emergency. So you've set aside a process, but the ordinance still is an ordinance. It's not an emergency ordinance that has a different definition, time span, or
Well, they
Thing
have
like
to
that.
put at the bottom, during the enactment, this emergency ordinance is effective immediately upon signature.
this.
Due to extenuating circumstances, but there being an emergency.
Okay. So yeah.
But you're right, it doesn't say at the top, like,
Yeah.
it's the ordinance, just as ordinance.
So as far as I know, general ordinance and ordinance means the same thing. As far as I know. But that's a good question. This thing is dripping all over.
You've got drinking problem.
I know. Yes, and that is on record.
It's a public meeting. Everybody knows that now.
Yes, so other than that, is there anything else that is a question about section 34.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Go for it now.
Is there an assumption that public improvements must be financed by a singular procedure? That seems to be implied.
I was kind of wondering in that when it said enforcing the payment.
This is the procedure for levying, collecting, and enforcing the payment of special assessments. Shall be governed by general ordinance.
Okay.
Is there an implication here that there is a singular procedure for the financing of public improvements?
I see what you're saying.
That seems bizarre, given that
Not.
it's not. There are multiple procedures
Right.
depending on the kind of public improvement.
Well, I think
So it's the specific procedure at this time.
so. Yeah, I mean, this is saying that. I mean, you could get into the weeds and say, the portion of funding for any given capital improvement project that is deemed to be deemed to be charged to the real property owner, and such procedure for levying, collecting, or enforcing that section. When we get into that weed and say, you know, you haven't defined the capital improvement project that you're going to be doing here.
Right.
It could be anything. So, and that means it could be any number of ways in which it's funded. It could be funded through grant. It could be funded through state or federal funds, you know, all sorts of things. But whatever that assessment is, whatever that project is, if there is determined that there needs to be an assessment to the property owner that it is improving, then this is how you're going to do it. I mean, I think we could get that detailed, but
Governed by the same.
I think it's kind of
Section 33.
Well, ordinances.
why would you want to do that? Why would you want to be more detailed in there about that? What would be the
Sure. Let's say that there's one kind of public improvement that you want to be able to finance in one way. For instance, the passage of a particular kind of bond. Let's say that there's a different kind of public improvement that you want to be able to finance in a different way, such as the collection of a particular kind of tax. The way that this is written implies that, to me, when I'm reading it, it implies that you cannot have two different procedures because it references one. It says the procedure for doing that, as opposed to procedures for doing that. That's the only, I'm nitpicking.
I think the key to this is that this is a special assessment.
Okay.
This isn't an assessment.
Okay.
This is a special assessment, and it is being levied against or to those individuals who have real property that either, you know, are adjacent to the public improvement or part of the public improvement or whatever. I think that is, for me, how it makes it broader. There are going to be assessments, but this isn't talking about funding of the project. This is an assessment of the project. What's the difference between the funding of a project and an assessment of it? So you fund your project, but you're assessed a fee because of locality, use. What else? Why would you be assessed a fee?
Locality use request.
I
mean,
think it basically means taxes, doesn't it?
well, not necessarily.
Well,
It's not a
levies
tax.
or-
Not a tax, it's
And
an assessment, yeah.
It's an assessment. It says, it's like when you play Monopoly and you put a hotel in, you get assessed so much for the sidewalk.
Maybe it's more like a special assessment being a regulated type of,
Right.
something more regulated and strict and compliance with maybe state or federal or some other kind of entity that says yes or no to how or who, what we're going.
And this could be really, this language could be really important if we finally get around to doing that. What are those fees called when you make improvements? We don't have any here in Oak Ridge.
I think it's
They
special
just-
assessment districts.
No,
No,
for building houses. and
Yeah.
stuff,
Oh,
what is that called? I think they just passed them in Lowell,
they pass them pretty much everywhere.
except for Oak Ridge.
Yeah, land use development,
Yeah,
land.
But
use
system development charges?
system
Yes, that's
development
it.
charges.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Would,
Those are not special assessments, but
Okay.
so I'm just Wikipedia here.
Yeah,
A
yeah, yeah.
Special assessment is a charge that public authorities can assess against real estate parcels for certain public projects.
Okay.
It leveled in a specific geographic area, to your point, also known as a special assessment district. The special assessment can may only be levied against parcels of real estate which have been identified as having received a direct and unique benefit from the public property, from the public project. This includes the installation of drinking water lines, sewer lines, streets, concrete, fire protection, parking structures, street lighting for a special assessment district.
so it's very narrow, very limited as far as, you get the benefit for it, you get assessed.
mhm.
If you don't get a benefit from it, you're not gonna get assessed.
Well, I can't see the streetlights, so I don't need to pay for them.
That's top signs been.
Right, yeah. But if it's deemed for better public good, then people with vision don't
So,
have your house.
having read
You
that,
still might
does
be
that
liable
help
to pay
with
for
your
it.
vision? It's just not-
I know.
Is
Yeah,
there a question?
but I think, yeah,
I asked Matt if, having read that, does that help with his question about this being very narrow and not talking about other ways in which funding happens?
No.
Okay, okay,
The-
no, that's good.
Let's say the city creates a special assessment district.
Okay.
And there are improvements made to that special assessment district that there may be short-term improvements made to the special assessment district to facilitate, for instance, the location of businesses there.
Okay.
And there may be more long-term improvements made to that special assessment district to facilitate everything else that happens. So water, sewer, and is still, I mean, all of this is just based on this making singular the word procedure. It seems to me that it may tie the city's hands to say you can only have a singular procedure regardless of the term of benefit within the special assessment district. Whereas I'm under the impression, perhaps mistaken, that the term of benefit can, for a special assessment district, result in the stipulation of drastically different procedures for the collection of those funds. So for instance, if you're making improvements, let's say you're strengthening a roadway so that large trucks can make use of that roadway.
Okay.
You may want to say, we're going to collect those funds for the special assessment district only from businesses within the special assessment district. All of the other improvements that benefit everyone in the special assessment district, including all those people who drive cars and don't need a super hardened road surface, we're collecting from everyone. So now there's two different procedures.
Maybe.
No,
So no, no,
Yeah.
My question is, why don't we use legal word and city?
just use what the league says.
what does the league say on
Let me go back.
that? All right.
Okay, I
Can
got
you just add an S to procedure?
Yeah, procedures,
Yeah.
or it's fixed by general ordinances. Make one of them plural.
Just in case he
Okay,
does.
so this just says the procedure
The procedure.
for levying, collecting, and enforcing special assessments for public improvements or other services charged against real property will be governed by ordinance.
Okay.
See, so that tells me that
So whatever
each
procedure
special
you use is gonna
assessment
have to
is
be
gonna
governed
have
by
its own.
Choose your procedure.
And to your point, and you said it too, I think it says shall, it should say will.
Yeah, ours says
Okay.
shall, and it also says to be, and that one just says is, I believe. Service or are charged. Ours says to be charged.
This says will be, oh, no, sorry, levying
So
special
improvements
assessments or other services
services.
charged. Services
Just
charged
charged.
against.
In
real
ours, it
property.
says to be
Okay.
charged.
So I understand, Matt, what you're saying. I understand that you're worried that this would tie or hamper a process. I just don't know how to make the language change
And
so that it doesn't.
I would just add an S to procedure. I don't think that's all I would do.
Add an S.
Just in case he's.
Got it. Okay, we got that.
I don't
Add
see
this.
how adding an S to it would jeopardize.
I don't
the
either.
intent.
So add the S.
Unless levying, collecting, and enforcing all are covered by one ordinance.
Not going there.
Right, yeah.
All right,
From
so
section 33.
are we
it is
okay
by
with
a
if we add an
general
S?
ordinance.
If we suggest that we add an S,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay.
we're suggesting. So let's go to chapter 6 then. Or chapter 10,
We're on 10 now, right?
right?
Yes.
Did you read that?
I read that.
So I
Yeah,
get to
we're
read
on 35.
miscellaneous provisions, section 35. Is existing ordinances continued? All ordinances of the city consistent with this charter and in force when it takes effect shall remain in effect until amended or repealed. That's the section 35.
So if it doesn't meet the new charter stuff, they stay in effect until they can be changed to meet the new charters. That's my question.
Yeah, right. What if you make a new charter that isn't consistent with an ordinance?
Yeah, then you have X amount of time to fix the ordinance.
So, yeah, so listen to this. Tell me if this makes more sense.
Yeah.
All ordinances consistent with this charter in force. Hold on, next page. When it takes effect, remain in effect until amended or repealed.
Okay, so the ones that do work with it stay and everything else gets done. If it doesn't comply with the charter. When it's put in force.
Yes.
Yeah, I think what it means to say is everything that's old is over.
Yeah. No. It's just. It's there. It takes.
Even if it doesn't comply. With any new changes.
Well, they have to be amended or repealed.
We have so long to have that.
Which is why, as a charter review committee, when you're going through this, you need to say, okay, if we're going to change number 23 because we think it should be a little more like this, we need to see the implications of, is there something else that needs to be
Is
changed?
there an ordinance in the city that's going to
Yeah.
be affected if we change the wording in this particular thing, and if so, is it going to be positive or negative?
Yeah. Right,
That adds a whole lot of poo-poo to what we're doing here today.
right,
Just so you know.
right.
Can you say how?
Huh?
Can you say how?
How?
In that we're not revising any ordinances, so I'm trying to,
Yeah, but I think it's going down right.
oh.
I'm bad.
You're playing with the dizzy guy, come on.
Don't play with the dizzy guy.
His head's already spinning.
I know, right?
Are you asking me to say what I said again so that you can hear how I meant it to be said? Or-
If you don't
Yeah.
need to, then you don't need to. I was just trying to understand.
Trudy, did you have a question?
I'm just wondering, when it takes effect, is that the ordinance amendment or the, charter amendment?
This will take us to 7:30. This one.
No, okay, when it takes effect. So let's go back to the process. What we're doing is asking for changes to the charter. So, when we put that forth, all of these stay the way they are until, and it has to go to a vote by the city, I mean, by the population. They're gonna look at it and they're gonna say yes. Let's say they say yes to yes, oh, that's a great idea. Okay, now it has to go back to council and they have to amend or correct or repeal the specific ordinances necessary to put into effect what the citizens have just voted for.
So it would be ordinance.
So that's, their vote doesn't change the charter. Their vote gives the council the authority to change the charter. Actually, it tells them they have to change the charter. I'm sorry.
Is that a
I
shall
used
or
to like-
is that a shall or a will?
I didn't mean it that way. I meant, it's not a choice. They now have to do it.
Isn't it, I mean, is this getting picky here? What if we make a charter that says, you can no longer have dogs,
Okay.
right? But we have an ordinance that says, that you can have dog if you give it food and water, right?
Right.
Wouldn't that be inconsistent? And then, so does that ordinance stay in effect until, it sounds like that ordinance is not consistent with the new charter. Right. And so, does it stay in effect until somebody says, hey, your ordinance is it?
No, it's immediately nullified.
It
So
is.
the city council scrambles
Oh,
to
okay.
pass anything regarding dogs that they want to that's consistent.
So the ordinance is consistent with the new charter. Remain. Correct? Yeah, okay.
Yep. Okay. Section 36. Which goes along with section 35. Can you read? You want me to read?
Sure.
Okay.
All charters of the repeal of previously enacted provision, all charters of the city and all amendments thereto enacted before the time that this charter takes effect are hereby repealed.
Do we need the word there too?
Yeah, we don't. All charters of the city and all amendments enacted before the time that this charter takes effective are repealed.
3.1.
And yeah, and so the league even shortly, more concisely says, all charter provisions adopted before this charter takes effect are repealed. What was your question?
My question was, do we need the word there too?
All right.
My question is, can we adopt the League of Oregon Cities?
Yeah, we can totally do that.
Sure.
And section 37, I don't think we need to cover. It's right, time of the effect of the charter, that will be whatever we write it in, right?
Time effect. I will just add.
Okay.
The charter, the league has one other little section in the miscellaneous that is called severability. And it says the terms of this charter are severable. If any provision is held invalid by a court, the invalidity does not affect any other part of the charter. So if the court somehow determines that we said something wrong, it doesn't kick out the whole charter and you have to start over. It takes out just that piece.
Good one.
So our question is, can we?
So it's not like a point that
Can the council
not true and all parties.
Add that.
discuss that?
Yeah.
Possibly add that.
We could add that. I think makes sense.
So I wrote, so the League of Oregon Cities has a severability clause. Is there any reason we shouldn't add one to our charter?
Perfect.
Okay, so all right, if we, so I think we've made it through, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we have some additional additional things to be thinking about. One is that our role in proposing any charter amendments to the city comes with so I'm actually just going to focus on two things right now. One is that it comes with the need to explain anything we keep to the public well, and to explain to the public anything that we're suggesting be changed. So there's a public relations piece to our work as a subcommittee. And one of the more effective ways to go about that public relations piece is to host, they're sometimes called open spaces, but it's an opportunity for public comment to prior to our making proposals, so that there are 2 or 3 public meetings that there's an opportunity for the public to get to know the people who are on the Charter Review Committee, get to be familiar with the questions that we've asked, and to then make any suggestions that that they would want us to consider in making proposals for the charter to be changed. So I want to just make sure that that's on people's radar screen, that I don't think it was specified when signing up for the Charter Review Committee. By the way, you'll get to be a part of the public face of this committee that might be making some suggested changes, but it's important. Because if the public doesn't know who we are, what we've been doing, the risk that the work we're putting in is for naught increases greatly, as well as the risk that there is someone out in the public who has something really important for us to consider, that despite all of our combined intelligence, we didn't see it. That's real. So it's not just empty public rhetoric. It's or empty public relations. It's actual input. So that's something for us to talk about at our next meeting. The other thing that I'd like us to talk about at our next meeting is just taking a look at, if we're going to get this on the 2024 ballot, realistically, all of the changes that we're going to propose need to be done by March, so that the city attorney can review the language. So that's a momentous rate of progress that we're going to need to make if we want to have it on for the 2024 ballot. So one of the ways of doing that would be for our subcommittee to appoint a group of a smaller group of people to go through and hash things out, to come back to our committee with, hey, here are some things that here are some changes based on the questions that were asked. Because I'm guessing that all of us, especially from the surveys of when people are available, I'm guessing that all of us can't meet weekly for a fairly extended period of time in order to make that March deadline.
I don't think that's a great idea, just because it muddies the water. And when we explain to the public, well, we made changes, but it was these 3 people that made changes in this section. These 3 people made changes in this.
No. It would be the same subset of people who can meet regularly and make that more concerted commitment for the revisions that would not bring it to the public. Absolutely not. Would bring it back to our committee.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
When we're having public meetings, we would have to disclose that when we made the revisions, it was certain people making revisions in sections 1 through 4, others.
No, I'm saying that to expedite our group's consideration of proposals, having a subgroup of people, not assigning different sections to different people, assigning the entire thing to the same subset of people who have that interest and are willing to commit that level of time, which I don't think the entire subcommittee needs to do. They can take all of these questions and then explain to the committee, because right now there's when we go back through and we look at, hey, here's one way to address that issue. All of us can look at the League of Oregon Cities. All of us can consider multiple wordings. That's a lot of labor, and we're not going to finish at a once a month meeting clip by March. But we could conceivably at a once or twice a month meeting clip finish by March if we can say, hey, there's this group of people who's willing to devote that additional time. Would you all be willing to help us understand, to help the committee understand why certain recommendations might be more helpful? That group of people would have no additional authority on our subcommittee.
Sounds like they would. It sounds like it's those few people that would be making all the suggested changes. No,
it's just getting the jump started.
Okay.
Yeah, Jerry.
You're looking for work sessions.
Yes, I'm looking.
Basically, what
I'm looking for work sessions.
To do work sessions that are in this group, and if they're willing to come to a work session, those people show up, but nobody's excluded from it.
Yes.
So technically, you don't need a subcommittee.
Why
You just need to
everybody-
schedule a work session, and whoever can make it gets to work on it.
Yeah. So everyone's.
And then you're not saying we have a subcommittee in our subcommittee. But just whoever's capable of making it on these dates, we're going to do work sessions, and we would love you to be able to show up, but if you can't, we understand. And then you get rid of the whole concern of whether you're.
If you just have every other Wednesday or 2 Wednesdays a month or something, and whoever can be here, just carry on like that, I think.
Yeah, because that's where we've been operating. Not everyone's not made every single meeting.
Yeah.
Isn't this in addition to our regular Wednesday?
In addition.
So, for example, like if everybody that could get together on a Tuesday to present to the committee on that following Wednesday that the group meets, And thereafter, still can, all that, however many times they can meet before the next meeting, next month,
So
then.
nobody's got a fourth Wednesday meeting.
So, yeah. What I'm hearing everyone saying is that, we've gone all through this. We've made notes about what we see is unclear, incomprehensible, needs to be changed, made recommendations as to what possibly could be changed.
Mhm.
And now our next step is to go through and take those. And you're not open to saying, okay, I'll take the first three, you take the next three, and take the next three, look at them, put them in a concise thing, bring it back, and let's all look at it together. You would rather look at them all at one time.
But you can break down into groups during a work session. You
Well,
got 2 or 3 people that are doing
Then
one.
I'm not talking about a work session. I'm talking about you saying, I'm gonna do these three, I'm gonna do these three, you're gonna do these three, bring them back to a work session and then do it. Because if we're gonna meet a March timetable, that ain't gonna work. So, and I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. If you recognize you won't hit your March timetable. It won't happen. If we're as a group, all of us are gonna go through and look at it and go, okay, well, this says this says. If indeed you can bring work that you've done back to the work session and then go over it, you're 3 steps ahead. But I understand what James just said, because the perception then is that, well, did you translate the animal section correctly, Trudy? Because we know how you feel about animals. You know, there is that perception.
And did I manipulate it to make it happen? You know, because would be.
But so that's what I'm hearing, is that we don't want to take anything home as individuals and say, I'll do this section, bring it back at a work session. We want to do it all in a work session.
Well, as part of the research for when I come into the meeting, I'll go over and read the ordinance, and then I make little side notes on what my question would be when we all get together.
Okay.
And that's just so that it helps me, because I might forget what I had read then.
Right.
And can present now.
So looking into the future, as we go about backward now, going back to the beginning and looking at what we all decided, what our notes were, because we all can see this.
Yep.
We will then, instead of looking at it to say, what are my questions? We will look at it to say, these were the questions. This is the answer. This is what I think it should come back at. And then when we were here, we'll be able to share with one another. This is what we think this is what Trudy thinks this language should look like. And this is what Jan thinks this language should look like.
Mhm.
And do it that way. Is that what we're doing? And I'm okay with that. I really am. I just want everybody to be clear about how long this process will take. And it may be that you do this and we go, there's no way we're going to make a November 2024 election.
So are the notes in a file where it's a shared folder?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's one thing that I must have missed somehow.
Yeah, you can totally access them. Anyone can publish them.
And then make
Yeah.
comments off to the side, like kind of like what we did way back when we first started the admin.
That would be another way to facilitate quicker work, would be to allow asynchronous suggestions to address the questions. How do we feel about that?
I would propose that we make a copy of all the notes that we've done so far, just in case one of us gets in there and hits the red button.
Yeah,
I would think
Or
so
just
too.
definitely hard
Set your
copy.
numbers.
Well.
Nobody can mess with it. You can make it so people can only
Add to the comment column.
do the comments.
Can't do anything else.
No editing.
No editing to what is existing.
Yeah. Google Docs is awesome that way when you get all the people together.
So
And this is a Google Doc?
But
Yeah,
I still
it's a
prefer
Google
a
Doc.
hard copy.
Does it have a name?
That's a copy of Charter Review Committee currently.
It's so
Yeah. I still think we need it.
Simplicity, it's not-
Yeah, even if we have the comment field, I still think we need to rename. I do too. A benchmark of like,
That I have no.
Yeah. okay, yeah.
So we're gonna meet, we're gonna do our, how often do we gonna meet? I lost
Let's
that.
meet
track of
twice
that.
a month, I don't know.
I mean, I'm okay with meeting twice a month.
Yeah,
I will do my best to be here twice a month.
Okay.
I
I
I
think
can
that's
do
all
this
we
one for
can
sure,
do.
And then, like I
Yeah.
said, it looks like according to these, that there's no fourth Wednesday
Correct.
meeting
So we can do this Wednesday,
before James. So
the second Wednesday and the
the
fourth Wednesday.
I guess that's a 2-week window in there if that works for people.
I will actually not be able to make continuing Wednesdays.
Okay, so you won't be able to do the fourth Wednesday.
I won't be able to do any Wednesdays.
Oh, okay, so
Well, that changed everything.
Look at this thing.
Uh-oh, now what are we gonna do?
Okay, well, let's look at, we'll go day by day. So on Mondays, the first Monday is the WAG. Second Monday is Parks. Fourth Monday is Audit, so Monday's probably won't work. Okay, Tuesday.
So, James?
Yeah.
In terms of the other committee meetings.
Yeah.
I have a professional Zoom account that I can set up a public meeting ID.
Right, but the problem is a lot of these people are on other committees.
Mhm.
I'm on other committees, so we would be able.
So which other committees?
I'm on everything except for Parks.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm on 11 committees.
So for instance, on the second Monday, I'm seeing Parks.
Huh?
So that's the one that you're not on.
Correct.
Is anyone else on this committee on Parks?
is Dawn on Parks?
Uh,
No,
that-
Parks is not.
Midday meeting?
Okay.
Sorry, my.
She's
No,
on
it's-
7 committees.
Okay. So the second Monday might be an option,
Second Monday might be an option.
Except for me.
except for you.
Because Monday she can't be here.
But if we, I have it any other day of the week I can do, but
Okay.
not Monday.
Okay, so what is the second?
And you guys don't do
Tuesday.
anything on Fridays, do
Thursday.
you? Because that's your day
Go ahead.
off.
No, I still work on Fridays. Thursdays are available, the non-city council one.
So the second and fourth
Yeah.
Thursday,
Starting at 6.
Well,
second,
there's a city
Thursday.
council meeting on
Thursdays.
28th.
Kind of iffy, because I do the
Council meetings are on the first
No,
and
but it
farmer's
third.
market.
But I am in the radio show and our
Oh, okay.
proposals are going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays until that occurs
okay,
from,
so,
yeah.
Okay.
So that's going to take me out of hanging out at your meetings, but if the majority of you can do it, when the radio show's over, when the
okay,
burlesque show's over, like,
Thursday.
so then.
So the second and fourth Thursdays,
That's doable for me as well.
I will be coming in sweaty and dirty, but I'm okay with that.
okay. And I'm, yeah, I have a meeting during the day, but it doesn't affect that at all. So that's good. James, second and fourth Thursday.
Sure.
Okay. Is there any meeting that Don Kenyon might be on that would affect second and fourth Thursdays?
No.
Okay,
Fourth Thursday.
So second and fourth Thursdays,
6 p.m., right?
6 p.m.
are we okay with moving the meetings to them?
Yes.
Okay, so then.
So we have a meeting tomorrow.
to be,
Let's skip that.
We'll skip tomorrow and pick up on the 28th.
Next one is the 28th. Yes.
And is it still okay if we attend by Zoom?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to note that once we move into making proposals, we do need a quorum in order to okay the proposals.
Okay. Seriously?
If
And this is our whole group.
if we're
right?
going, if we're going to make the proposal as this is what our committee is saying the change needs to be. So if we are meeting all of us there can meet. But if we don't have quorum, but any of the things that we are suggesting have to be flagged for us as a committee to later.
I would say,
We gotta
I
read.
would counter that by
Okay.
saying at every meeting, we can meet regardless of whether we have a quorum.
Yes.
But there will be a meeting at the end that will be to approve or not approve.
Yep.
And at that meeting, you have to have a quorum.
Oh, okay.
That way, you know, and I as an individual, I would go, okay, well, I didn't attend this meeting. I better look and make sure what I wasn't at.
Mhm.
Is that how I would interpret it? So that I can come back at the next meeting or whenever, so that at the very end, when we have a quorum, we can approve the whole thing.
I'm not comfortable with that risk,
Okay,
but I would be totally comfortable with saying, hey, at the end of each meeting, we'll revisit the immediately prior meeting, so that we don't wind up with having to go through it all at the end.
I would disagree,
Okay.
but, and the reason I would disagree is because we're gonna have a limited amount of time and we're gonna need to get through
Right.
things.
Mhm.
I think, if you're not at a meeting and you're concerned about what happened at that meeting, you either need to be on it, or you need to, at the very end, go, I wasn't at that meeting. I need to make sure I look at this very carefully, because I need to approve or don't approve. I'm concerned that if we handhold too much, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, so please don't think that way. If we handhold too much, we won't make the progress we need to. But I would go with whatever, you know, obviously.
Yeah, one of the decisions we made early on was on the proposals to
Present the council.
no, to go by consent. So in other
Okay.
words,
Okay.
everyone can say, hey, I want to see this, I want to see this, I want to see this. And then as a facilitator, or I will, or whoever else is facilitating in my stead will take all of those, and for each little thing say, well, how about this? And that's designed for exactly what you're talking about, to expedite, so that we're not getting into a Robert's Rules of Order. I prefer this, I prefer that. Let's get our little factions together and take votes on it. But to say, does that suggestion, is that honoring what we've heard around the table in the proposals? If anyone is just ignored, then no. But the reason for that was to force any of the, I just can't live with that. To force the going back to the table, to continue to wordsmith. It's different from consent, where everyone's, it's different from consensus, where everyone says, oh, I like this. This is exactly what I want it to say too. I mean, heavens, we wouldn't clear it, by a 2026 vote with that approach. But with that, here's a proposal, then that do we consent? That consent decision needs to be made by a sufficient number of the group. So if we can't get that consent during the session, I think it's totally reasonable the subsequent session to say, hey.
I agree with that. I agree with that. If we don't come to a consensus at the end of a session, it will continue to the next. Because I don't think any proposal should move forward to the council unless we all agree with it. If we don't agree with it, it should be struck. Because I don't want to put anything in front of them to change a charter unless every one of the committee agrees that it should be changed. And how it should be changed. I don't want to do the whole, well, 2/3 of us say yay and a third of us say no. That would just be disastrous.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think we agree with each other.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
So
I agree with your dizzy hat.
yeah. All right. All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for staying here.
Hope your busyness goes away.
I do too.
I'll start.
Not as much as I did.
Thank you,
Stop
Jane.
recording, or are you gonna keep
So,
recording?
That's it.
Because when I say something appropriate, I don't really want it recorded.
Yeah.